Hello everyone, it's Daryn Wood. Today I'm going to be talking about Deadpool 2, so let's just get straight into it. I have so many mixed feelings about this movie. I like Deadpool 2 a lot. I had a lot of fun. I definitely recommend seeing it. But that being said, I did not love it, and I didn't think it was as good as the first one. But you know, to be fair, when the first Deadpool came out, it was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. So it was so surprising and refreshing, whereas this one was kind of riddled with the burden of expectations and requirements. And it kind of sucks that it's so hard to just enjoy this movie on its own and not compare it to the original. But it's a sequel, it's inevitable, and I feel like this movie made a lot of common comedy sequel mistakes. And generally speaking, comedy sequels are usually not that great. I can really only think of a handful of comedy sequels that are just as good as the original. It's a difficult task, you know, to try to stay true to the heart of the original while improving on it and trying to make it bigger without losing its authenticity. It's a tough line to walk because with comedy sequels, everyone's already expecting a certain kind of style and humor, and if they change too much, it feels like they're overdoing it, and if they don't change enough, it feels redundant. And what usually ends up happening is they amp everything up to the point where it just loses the quality of the original, and it's too big, there are too many cameos, and there's just too much thrown together. And to me, that's what Deadpool 2 felt like. Given it wasn't that bad, like I wasn't bothered by it, I just didn't enjoy myself as much as I did and still do with the original. I felt like Deadpool 2 focused too much on poking fun at the genre at the expense of the quality of the story, and that's where it went wrong. And hey, we all love that Deadpool doesn't take itself too seriously and takes a piss out of the comic book movie genre, but you can't build a franchise on those qualities alone. There has to be some substance, and it seemed like they were just like, it's okay, we don't have to have a clean-cut story because our whole deal is making fun of everything and not taking ourselves too seriously. But it's just like, calling out lazy writing and cliches doesn't make up for the fact that it is lazy writing and cliches. Deadpool 2 had a lot more jokes, and therefore a lot more jokes that didn't land. Like the first Deadpool movie was more tactful with its references, like it didn't trade quality for quips, and at its core it had a really great story with really great development. It was a comprehensive story that moved along really well, it made sense, it had strong emotional motivations and good pacing, and I realized that the story isn't Deadpool's like standout feature, but it's that great story that allowed for the humor and action to land so well. It laid the groundwork for amazing payoffs, whether it was jokes, emotion, action, plot. It was extremely well put together, and I feel like Deadpool 2 kind of lost that. The Deadpool 2 story felt all over the place, like it was doing too much and going in all these different directions that sometimes didn't even amount to anything. I really didn't even fully get the story until I had seen it twice, which is weird because when I think about it, conceptually, the story as a whole is good. It makes sense. I just feel like the movie didn't do what it set out to do. Honestly, I didn't really buy his whole deal with Russell. Like, it didn't make any sense why he would go through all this shit for some kid he barely even knew. Like, I get why he did it because the movie told me why, but I didn't feel it, you know? Like, I honestly didn't buy anyone's motivations. Like I said, I knew what I was supposed to be feeling because the movie told me, but I wasn't emotionally invested in anything. Like, nothing resonated. The only time I felt emotional was in that last sequence with Vanessa and Wade where she sends him back, but that's because of the emotion that was already established in the first movie. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I really didn't like what they did with Cable, and I don't know if that's because I've got my comic book bias on, but I just felt like his origin and his motivations were kind of disingenuous. Like, he went to the future to kill Russell to avenge his wife and daughter's death and stop him from killing a bunch of other people, but he was willing to kill a bunch of random people to do it? Like, he was laying waste to that city and like throwing all those mutant prisoners out of the truck. Like, I get it's true to character, you know, Cable's pretty violent, Cable doesn't give a fuck, but it doesn't make sense to have a character that doesn't give a fuck when the whole reason he's there is because he gives some fucks. I just thought his character was kind of messy, especially at the end where he like ditches his wife and daughter to save Deadpool just so he can stick around and make sure the world doesn't get fucked up. Like, that's weird. He just went through all this shit to save them, and then at the end of it he's like, you know what? I can live without them. They should have had him say something like, I realize that me being around puts them in danger, so now that they're alive, I need to stay away to keep them safe. Like, I don't know, something, anything. But I am glad that we are going to be seeing more of him with Deadpool and Domino, because I thought they all had amazing chemistry. I don't know why, but my favorite Deadpool and Cable moment was when Deadpool was like, hey, can I have one of those guns? And he was just like, no. I actually really like Josh Brolin's portrayal of him. That dude is killing it, man. He has such a great voice and such a great presence. I thought he looked amazing. I loved the way they did the techno-organic virus and showed how he linked up with technology. I actually thought his gadgets looked super tight. As some of you who've watched my other videos know, I like sci-fi technology that feels realistic, which sounds silly to say, but some sci-fi and comic book movies tend to have technology that just feels too easy or too weird or too incomprehensible. And like him loading up his guns with all those little cartridges and dials was, I don't know, it was cool, man. I just liked it. But let's keep talking about the things that I liked. I thought it was a good move for the sequel to go from poking fun at themselves to poking more fun at the genre as a whole. I thought the action sequences were fantastic. I thought the use of gore and violence was honestly perfect. It wasn't too gratuitous, but it was exaggerated enough to be true to Deadpool form. I actually like that we got more ridiculous Deadpool injuries, because that's something that I love from the Deadpool comics. And although I didn't always like their choice of music, I love that the first sequence was to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, because I love that song and I love that movie and it fit perfectly. I thought it was interesting the way they used Vanessa, because it made sense to take her out of the equation to let Wade grow as a person, but I like that they recognized the emotional presence she brings and used her as like an emotional catalyst to move things along, because she is someone that the audience is heavily invested in, and it would have been a huge bummer if she wasn't in the movie at all. But my favorite part of the whole movie was probably the X-Force sequence. That was so incredibly well done. It was the perfect execution of genre satire. Like, not only was it hilarious and entertaining, it was super relevant for our current comic book movie culture. Like, everyone on the internet is always obsessing over leaks and trailers and trying to figure out who's in what and how it's all going to play out. And Deadpool 2 just like teed it up and was just like, fuck your expectations. I honestly did not see that coming. The whole thing was just fantastic. Like, Ryan Reynolds and TJ Miller were hilarious together. The auditions were hilarious. Dupinder getting all butthurt was hilarious. But my favorite part is probably a toss-up between Peter's melanoma joke and that shot where they're all like flailing around in their parachutes. And speaking of X-Force, we gotta talk about Domino. I'm obsessed with her. I'm totally on the bandwagon. I need more Zazie Beetz in my life. I thought her powers were so fresh and different from anything we've ever seen before, and you know, very cinematic. Although I like it more as things just work out for her, as opposed to her getting whatever she wants, because that whole truck driving shit didn't make any sense, and her like getting a bus just because she wanted one. I love that action sequence where she was kicking a bunch of pedophile ass, and I really like that concept floating around that her luck makes everyone around her less lucky. I hope they stick more to that shit, because that shit is dope. She was so charismatic and had great chemistry with the rest of the cast. I just think her character has a lot of potential, and I'm super excited to see more of her. But I really do hope that they keep the Deadpool universe separate. Like, don't get me wrong, that X-Men cameo was fucking hilarious, but I really hope they're not building the X-Force franchise to fold it into the shitty Fox X-Men universe, because I am so over that shit. Like, I feel like I've been waiting forever for the Fox X-Men universe to just fucking die already. Just, it's taking way too long. But also because I think Deadpool as a franchise just works best as its own thing, and I think it'll suffer if it has to play by the rules of another franchise. And we cannot end this video without mentioning the end credit scenes, because those were hands down the best end credit scenes I have ever seen. Like, bravo to the whole Deadpool team. I was dying of laughter the entire time. That whole cleaning up the timeline shit was so on point, and I also love that they just didn't give two shits about the consequences of time traveling, because honestly, it's no fun. and it's whatever, and it's not something that this franchise needs to concern itself with. I am really happy though that he went back and he saved Vanessa, because I am so into their relationship. I love them together so much, and I really hope this means that she's coming back. And you know what? I could go on and on about every joke that I liked, but I'm gonna wrap this up. All in all, I thought Deadpool was a good movie. I had a lot of fun both times that I watched it, but to me, it just wasn't as good as the original. But you know, the first movie had like 10 years to iron its shit out, and this movie had like 1 year, so them's the breaks. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please share it with a friend and check out my other ones. Don't forget to give me a like, give me a subscribe, and lately I've been hearing people say turn on notifications, so if that's a thing, do that as well. If you want to stay updated on all my shenanigans, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I've also been live streaming every week on Twitch, so you can give that a follow and check that out. But other than that, I will see you next time.